It was Augustine who prayed, "Oh God, give what you command." I love that prayer. It has been so meaningful to me. Oh God, give what you command. Sometimes the commands of God are hard. Verse 12 is a hard command. To work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. To live out of the salvation you've received in such a way that you are reflecting that gospel. You're showing that you're really a believer by the way that you live your life. That's a hard task because it's a great salvation that you've received. But Augustine's prayer gets answered here in verse 13. Verse 12 says, "Therefore, my beloved, as you've always obeyed, so now, not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling." Verse 13, "For it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure." Oh God, you command me to work out my salvation with fear and trembling, to live this life of sanctification, building out of the gospel received. And you don't leave me to my own devices. Instead, you give me verse 13. For it's God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. God is at work in my life. Well, how am I obeying commands that left to my own devices I wouldn't naturally want to do? Because God moves. How am I following through with things that I don't feel like following through with? Because God moves. Left to my own devices, I wouldn't be obedient. Left to my own devices, verse 12 would be a hopeless command. But I'm given resources, namely God himself. And this is one of the most beautiful things about my walk with the Lord and your walk with the Lord, is that just as though we depend upon him for our salvation in the sense of we have been saved, we depend upon him for being saved. We depend upon him for being sanctified. We depend upon him for our constant growth. We depend upon him for obedience to his commands. We don't just get thrown into a bucket called the saved and then live out of law and do whatever and do our best and try our hardest and try to be good boys and girls. Instead, he rescues us and he continually renews us. That's what verse 13 teaches. He rescues and he continues to renew us. Oh God, give what you command. And he did. He commanded in verse 12, my obedience. And he gave me the resources in verse 13. Take heart in that and know that you always stay tethered, strengthened by, fortified by the rock of your salvation, God. Take care.